country.
Let's go live now to Melbourne. Liberal MP Tim Wilson joins us. Tim Wilson, thanks so much for your time. We look at the United States at the moment, 12 million cases now of coronavirus, no community transmissions in Australia. Was it all worth it?
But obviously, everybody should be incredibly relieved at the results that have been achieved. And they've been achieved off the back of Victorians and other Australians who have sacrificed significantly and will continue to sacrifice, unfortunately, into the future as we see the economic costs go through to try and keep Australia as COVID-free as possible. My hope, of course, is that we don't see any further outbreaks. I'm sure that's exactly the same as all other Australians, but we need to look at the totality against the whole framework of the pandemic, which unfortunately globally at least still has a way to go before we can judge what the right policy response is.
Whether you like it or not, this pandemic has exposed the Federation, and a lot of the power has been ceded to the states.
Sorry, that's not correct. Sorry, politely. The states have always had the power. They haven't been ceded to them, and that is the way it should be. We want power exercised closest to the people that governments seek to represent. We are a federation of states. We do not have monopoly government, and we should not want monopoly government in Canberra.
Okay, that was where my question was going, whether this current situation is one that is right, that the state should be in control of their own jurisdictions. Look, before...
Well, I think, sorry, just for clarity, I think the answer is yes, but
yeah.
I think one thing that we've got to resist is this trend towards nativism, and we've seen this particularly in Queensland and Western Australia, where there's been an appeal from the premiers there to a nativist instinct rather than a common humanity instinct. We all understand that measures have to be taken in different states to protect different populations, but when it seemed to be at the expense of the general community to protect a nativist community attitude is something that I think is something we should not be encouraging.
Well, Tim Wilson, many might see that particular comment as overly partisan because you've just singled out Labor states. What about some of the Liberal states? Do you have any criticism for them?
No, I'm quite happy to criticise Liberal states. In fact, I raised concerns during the pandemic around the federal government, which I'm a supporter of. So that argument slightly is rubbish. But what we saw was Queensland saying Queensland hospitals for Queenslanders only. Well, no, sorry, that's not true. We see the West Australian approach, which is a hard border approach, but it seems to be Western Australia at the expense of everybody else. And I believe that we should have local governance. I believe that states should be in control because they're closer to the problems or the challenges we're confronting. But I don't think we should be developing a nativist instinct which puts some communities at the expense of others.
Okay, let's talk about superannuation. What is your instinct on superannuation? Should it be delayed, the increase in the super guarantee? Should it stay at 9%?
Well, I think we've got to look at the whole retirement system, and that's what the Callaghan report did, rather than just looking at the increase. And what the Callaghan report correctly outlined is that home ownership is the most critical foundation of a secure retirement. Super comes second. And so that's where our focus should be. And what we've actually done is normally young Australians are able to save for a home and then start saving for their retirement. The structure we've set up for our retirement system is reverse that. We now have compulsory super first, and then after you've saved for that, you're able to start saving for a home. And so we've got it out of whack. We get it back correctly in line because that's the base on which people enjoy success in their lives, working lives and their retirement.
Well, you pay, I think, about 15% in super because you're a parliamentarian. Should that be looked at as well?
Well, I've always said I don't much care. I'm quite relaxed either way. It's a complete distraction from the real issue, which is that we need to promote home ownership for young Australians and make it easier, and that includes doing things to make home. I just literally wrote a whole book about this, the new social contract, which I encourage you to read, where I say how critical and important home ownership is, and that the flow on is super has a role, but home ownership should come first, superannuation should come second.
Sure. Okay, so what level should superannuation be compulsory at all?
Well, I think what we've got to say is we're forcing people to save, that they should be able to access it to buy a home, because that's the most critical factor, and then worry about superannuation, because you can worry and save for superannuation after you've purchased a home. You can't purchase a home in retirement. So you've got to get the alignment right, and that's what's wrong. It's a structural problem with the conversation. So then you can have a discussion around the rate and everything else, but if you get it out of whack, and that's what we've got, you're not going to get the right answer to the question.
Well, there's also a problem as well with an over-reliance on the age pension, wouldn't you say? I think 70% of Australians of a pension age are getting a pension or a part pension. That would show that superannuation is failing, failing to really provide for people in retirement.
Well, that's fundamentally one of the core points that Callaghan outlined, is that 30 years ago, roughly, when we introduced compulsory super, about 67% were relying on the pension. It's now down to 65%. So we've saved billions of dollars, huge tax incentives, and restructured people's entire lives to put their retirement savings before home ownership. And it's basically seen no significant decrease in demand on the pension. So we've got to get real. We've got to have a proper, honest conversation. Home ownership first, super second, and then worry about some of the other issues around rates and everything else.
Well, more seriously, wages growth is one of those top tier issues. Is there any guarantee, or can your government work to guarantee that if the super increase doesn't go ahead, the guarantee, would there be some kind of compulsory instinct for business, or can you compel them to give that what they would save in wages growth, or you again leave it up to the market, which has failed so far?
Well, I don't quite accept the premise of that question, because what we've seen is difficult wage growth for years now, and that's while the compulsory super guarantee has been going up. So what we've seen is stagnant wages because the super guarantee has gone up. So if we want to reverse that trend, then obviously we have to make a decision, which we haven't made, about the rate and the trajectory of the compulsory super guarantee. And then, of course, making sure that if there was to be an adjustment, flow through. But that decision hasn't been made, and as I keep outlining, I don't think that's a critical question before us. I think the more critical one is, why are we putting superannuation in front of home ownership when, as the Callaghan report correctly outlined, home ownership is the critical factor in secure retirement, not superannuation.
Yeah, there's a lot to digest in that Callaghan report. Tim Wilson, appreciate your time.
Thank you.